education area, promoting close collaboration and the development of partnerships between its members in both teaching and research. But more importantly, it creates a space for dialogue and mediation that strengthens the role of the academic community as a force of global development and change. Now, the University of Cyprus has been a member of the UNICA network since 1994, and we have benefited greatly through the exchange of knowledge and best practices with our partner institutions. The UNICA Scholarly Communication Seminar is a remarkable opportunity for the UNICA University Libraries to promote academic excellence and collaboration among all UNICA members. Open science and open access to research publications and research data are critical issues in modern-day academia and the research ecosystem. And obviously, university libraries are the most important stakeholders in promoting the open science principles globally. In the context of open access, new norms for research and its dissemination are needed to be established and implemented. We recognize, of course, that this is not an easy endeavor, as it entails a profound change in our academic culture. I'm certain that the 10th UNICA Scholarly Communication Seminar will provide useful information and enlighten us about some of the best practices and the latest developments in the area. So I would like to thank you all for your valuable participation, and I wish you all a fruitful exchange of ideas, knowledge, and personal experiences on the open science challenges. Finally, I would like to especially thank the organizing committee of the seminar, our library colleagues, and the members of the UNICA Scholarly Communication Coordination Team. Thank you very much and welcome.
So, thank you very much, Professor Diakidoi, for this very nice welcome. It is really a pleasure to be here for me. I'm Luciano Saso, the president of UNICA, and actually I have a very good memory of your library because I visited before it was open a few years ago, and actually the idea to meet again in that library would have been really fantastic. We have to accept, unfortunately, this situation due to the pandemic. But as I always say, also we have opportunities given by this digitalization era in which we had to jump in quite abruptly, and we can do actually more events online. We can meet more often. So we did several preparatory meetings, which actually before were a bit more difficult. In UNICA, we were organizing events mainly in person before COVID. And then, after COVID, we completely moved online, and we hope to go back to a new normal in which we will mix, in person and some other digital events. The topic of today is very important: supporting the university community in the open science era. This topic is extremely important for UNICA, and especially for this group, the Scholarly Communication Group. We debated this, several times before, but of course, this is a topic under development. And as we will see in the next, today and tomorrow, discussions, also again, COVID is there as an actor pushing us towards, a higher, again, digitalization and opportunities to share information. So I'm looking forward to listening to all the discussions. This, I have to say, is also one of the most actually long events that UNICA organized in this new, COVID era, because we have one full afternoon and then one full morning tomorrow. I'm very proud of that because we are showing that even online we can do events which actually resemble a bit the format of events that we were organizing in person before. So again, there are good opportunities that we have to grab and try to work together in a different way. I want to thank also many people. I would like to start with Françoise van Doren, who has been coordinating the scholarly communication group for a long time, and I know she worked a lot in designing this event together with our colleagues in Cyprus. I want to thank very much the new coordinators of the group, Andreas Dekvits and Raul Aguilera, who are working with a high enthusiasm in this group. We met several times already online, and we will meet again soon, I guess. Again, many thanks again to the University of Cyprus for hosting virtually this event. So Professor Irene Anna Diachidoi and all the other colleagues, Elena Diomidi Parpuna, the acting library director of the University of Cyprus, Marianne Emanuel, again from the library, and Silvia Kukunidu, coordinator of the digitization and archives office of the University of Cyprus. I also want to thank very much our keynote speaker today, Silvia Bottaro, legal officer of the European Commission, the Innovation and Research Open Science Unit. And then, of course, the UNICA office, always very active, in this digital era, in this case, especially Laura Brossico and Alexandra Duarte. So, of course, many thanks also to all the participants online, to the speakers and panelists who are with us today. And I wish to all of you a very productive and very pleasant meeting.
Dear UNICA President, Mrs. Luciano Sasso, dear Vice Rector of the University of Cyprus, Professor Diakidou, dear distinguished speakers, dear guests, I would like to virtually welcome you to the 10th UNICA Scholarly Communication Seminar, which this year is hosted by the University of Cyprus Library. Thank you very much for being here with us today, and we are really very sorry for not being able to have you here face-to-face for face-to-face meeting in our library, as we planned it many years before. Health is an negotiable issue, so let us keep ourselves safe and at the same time wish to meet again physically in the near future. It has been a great pleasure for me to collaborate with UNICA Scholarly Communication Secretary team and my colleagues in Cyprus in order to prepare this event. I would like to thank everyone specifically for the excellent collaboration. This year's seminar focused on a subject which is undeniably of a great global interest due to its revolutionary effects to an academic culture and best practices followed for many years now, the open science. We hope that this today's presentation fulfill your expectation and provide new knowledge to all of us. Many thanks to all distinguished speakers for their contribution, as well as to all of you for participating. Wishes also for a fruitful 10th Scholarly Communication Seminar in Cyprus.
Thank you, Helena. Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, dear Vice President Irene Anna Diachidoi, dear UNA President Luciano Sasso, dear Helena again, I'm very happy to welcome you here in this Zoom meeting. And of course, it would be better if we could meet in Cyprus, because Cyprus is a wonderful island. I've been there several times, but the COVID has its consequences, and unfortunately, we can't meet physically on this beautiful countryside. I welcome you very warmly as chair of the UNICA Group for Scholarly Communication, and we have a very ambitious program. I thank all people from the UNICA office for their endeavors to configure this program. It's really hard work and it's very good program, very convincing. And I thank, I'm thanking all the speakers who are willing to talk to you, to talk with us, to discuss their topics. I think it would be a very interesting webinar that we could have in the next 2 days. Okay. My task now is to introduce Silvia Bottaro. Luciano did this already a little bit. And I repeat that Sylvia is a legal officer at the European Commission, Directorate General for Research and Innovation. She works in the Open Science Unit, which is very good for us, for our workshop, where she contributes to the further development and implementation of the European Open Science Agenda. Before joining the European Commission, she coordinated the Open Science Working Group of the Guild of European Research Intensive Universities. And she has many other positions where she has could gain experiences about open access, open science, and so on. So, Sylvia, where are you? Here you are?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. And I would be very happy to say to you, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Professor De Grits, and thank you very much as well to UNICA, the University of Cyprus, and also all the organizing committee for the invitation to this seminar. It is, of course, unfortunate that we cannot meet in person, but very happy that the digital solution allows us still to be in touch and to meet virtually in this manner. So as you rightly say, I'm going to provide an overview of what is cooking, let's say, from the European Commission side, and what are our latest initiatives to move forward with the open science agenda. So next slide. I'm sure every one of you is very much familiar with what open science is, but just as a reminder, we have a definition now in the Horizon Europe regulation, so in the legal text and in the model grant agreement. And when we talk about open science, we really mean an approach to the entire scientific process. It is, of course, very important at the latest stage of the research life cycle through publication and dissemination. Nevertheless, open science plays a role really through the entire research life cycle, and it is based on the open and early sharing of knowledge and tools, not only between researchers and researchers across different disciplines, but also with the society at large. Why at the European Commission we really care about open science and we consider it an important policy priorities? Because we think and we really believe that it has the opportunity to increase the quality and the efficiency of research and innovation. It increases as well creativity by bringing together collective intelligence and enabler as well different disciplines to work together, share findings, and it also importantly contribute to increase trust in the science system by engaging researchers but also citizens. Next slide, please. We see some still in the road toward making open science the new normal, still some challenges and priorities and work that we have to do. We need to improve the practice of research and innovation by making openly accessible scholarly publication, fostering the early sharing of all the research outputs, not only data and publications, but also other outputs such as software, algorithms, and so on. To make all data fair, so findable, accessible, interoperable and reusable, so the importance of research data management, the reproducibility of results, because today we see that, and also we have seen it during the COVID-19 crisis and pandemic, that many articles did not have data availability statement, and so like that it's not possible to access the data and verify the results, and this is really very important for the productivity and the efficiency of research. And as I was mentioning as well, the importance of societal engagement and responsibility. And we need to develop proper enablers. This means changing and improving the research assessment system with appropriate metrics as well being developed. Also, it means developing appropriate skills and education, including on research integrity. Develop the European Open Science Cloud, that, as you know, it's also an important priorities for us at the Commission, and also create the legal and regulatory environment and framework that it's fit for research. And I'm thinking about the legal and regulatory framework that concern copyrights and data. And all this needs to be done, of course, by engaging internationally. Of course, Europe, it's an important dimension, but we know that when we talk about research collaboration internationally, also beyond Europe, is very important. We need to involve all the actors and moving towards changing the research culture in this sense. Next slide. So here the European Commission, in doing all this, we have three hats, if we want to say. So one as policymakers, because we propose European legislation and we monitor its implementation, also in cooperation with member states. We are a funder, and especially through the Horizon Europe Framework Program, we have the opportunity to set our own rules and policies for scientific research. And we are also a capacity building through, for example, our joint research center and supporting and funding infrastructure that support our policy. Next slide. So as a policymakers, as you might know, open science is also implemented through the European Research Area. And the European Research Area, as you might know, has the vision really to create a single market, if we want, for research and innovation. So very important priority for us. And next slide. Last year, we launched a communication on the new and the renewed European Research Area. And in here, open science plays really an important and prominent role, and it's an important policy priority within the new era. We have 4 specific actions on open science. The one is related to Open Research Europe, which is the new publishing platform that we are providing for Horizon 2020 and Horizon Europe beneficiaries. We'll say a bit more about this action further. We also have an action to analyze authors' rights to enable the sharing of publicly funded peer review articles without restriction. We have an action on continuing the development of the European Open Science Cloud and also on improving the research assessment system. And also we have actions on improving citizen engagement through citizen science campaigns that are mainly implemented through the Horizon Europe missions. Next slide. So telling you a bit more on these very important actions that we have planned within the European Research Area. So one is on copyright. So we see very much how the adequate and appropriate IP management is really crucial to enable open science. And of course, an important type of IPR is copyright. And copyright really, and the management of copyright and these rights is crucial for the dissemination and to enable open science. We have a few relevant legislation in this area. As you know, the Copyright Directive, which was revised in 2019 and was due to be transposed this summer, contains important exception for text and data mining, so further enabling the reuse of the content. We also have an upcoming review of the Database Directive, which will be part of the upcoming Data Act. There was a public consultation open this summer, and a proposal for the Data Act will come probably at the beginning of next year. And also, as I was mentioning, under the European Research Area, currently our Open Science Unit is carrying out a study to analyze author rights to enable the sharing of publicly funded peer review articles. But we also are analyzing some important proposed and further data legislative and regulatory frameworks, like the Data Governance Act, the Data Act, to understand how this framework impacts the sharing and the reuse of data, and how all this legislative, let's say, framework that we have can be better made fit for research in the future. Next slide. As part of the ERA, we also have an important action on improving the research assessment system, because we know very much that the further uptake of open science practices cannot happen if these are not appropriately incentivized and rewarded. And we see how the research assessment system at the moment is based on narrow metrics, such as, for example, the journal impact factor, or it values very narrow outputs, such as, for example, the publication, but not other outputs attitudes such as data sets and behaviors like sharing of data, open collaboration, and sharing of knowledge. So that's why we are trying as well to do as that the European Commission, so to improve the research assessment system, but we don't want to do it top down. We want really to create a bottom-up initiative because this is, of course, an improvement of the research assessment system is an endeavor of of many actors. And we are currently consulting with research funders, research performing organization, and policy making on how to advance with this reform. We had many consultations, and UNICA was also involved in a stakeholder assembly that we organized in March this year, and we will also have another stakeholder assembly in December, where we will invite UNICA, as we consider UNICA and its institution very important stakeholders in this debate. And as we are seeing in the course of this consultation, the way forward will be to reach an agreement by 2022 between those organizations that will be willing to reform the current research assessment system. And this could take the form of a memorandum of understanding that will be signed between funders and research performing organizations. This agreement will set some overarching principles and actions for a reformed research assessment system. So the principle will be the glue and something on which the signatories can commonly agree. But then there will be also some monitoring activities and concrete implementation, and this will not be set by the European Commission, but directly by those willing organizations that will join this coalition of the willing and that will sign this memorandum of understanding. And we hope that UNICA and its institution will contribute to this and will be participating in this initiative as well. Next slide. As I was saying, another important, two slides before.
Sorry.
No problems.
Sorry.
No, before.
Just.
Yes, that one. I wanted just briefly also to mention New Open Research Europe, because this is the new publishing platform that we have recently made available. We launched it in March 2024, and it's an open access publishing platform for Horizon 2020 and Horizon Europe beneficiaries. And this is a way for us, as many other funders are doing, so Wellcome Trust, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation have a similar platform. So now the European Commission has also its own open access publishing platform, and this is a way to support our grantees in complying with our open access policy, but also through the platform we lead by example in operationalizing a number of open science principles that we would like to see in the future within scientific publishing. So for example, Open Research Europe uses a very innovative post-publication peer-reviewed model, and the identity, so all the articles are immediately published as preprints, and then they automatically undergo peer review, and all the content is immediately available open access under CC BY licenses. Next slide. So I said a bit of what we are doing as policymaker, but I wanted also to very briefly mentioning you as we are also practicing what we preach as a funder within the Horizon Europe Framework Program. And so next slide, Horizon Europe moves really beyond open access. We started with open access in 2008 with the 7th Framework Program, and now we moved towards a more comprehensive policy, so move beyond open access towards open science. And under Horizon Europe, we really streamlined and we made open science the modus operandi of the entire framework program, because open science plays a role not only in the evaluation of the proposal, but also in the implementation, reporting, and we also streamlined open science across all the work programs of Horizon Europe. So we really had a lot of internal work as well within the Commission to streamline these across the entire work programs constituting Horizon Europe. And next slide. I wanted just to briefly highlight what are the main novelties of Horizon Europe, which are certainly relevant for you, who provides a lot of support also to your researchers in your institution. So as I was saying, Horizon Europe moves beyond open access. It's a broader policy file, and it's about open science. So it's comprised the entirety of open science practices. Open science is now evaluated under the excellence criterion. So as you know, proposals are evaluated against 3 criterion: excellence, impact, and quality and efficiency of the implementation. So now we have open science evaluated under excellence. And also importantly, we want to move away, as I was saying, also playing our own part in how research assessment is performed. So we will not evaluate the publications that are listed by our applicants based on the journal impact factor, but only on a qualitative assessment that is provided by the applicants. We also encourage very much our beneficiaries and authors to retain intellectual property rights. So we will really ask beneficiaries to maintain enough intellectual property rights to comply with the open access requirements. We know that sometimes these intellectual property rights are handed to publishers. So we really want to encourage authors not to do so, or at least to retain enough rights to meet their open access obligations. All publications will have to be made available immediately under open access. So it will not be possible to have embargo periods anymore, and only publication fees in full open access venue will be reimbursable. So we will not cover any more publication fees in hybrid journals. And then next, we also, and I see it's very important as well in the discussion that you will have later on, we really place a very strong focus on proper research data management. So this will be mandatory for all projects generating and reusing data, and some aspects will have to be addressed at proposal stage, but also an important novelty is that we also require a mandatory data management plan to be provided by the month 6 of the project. And we also have, for example, a lot, as you might already know, requirements for specific licenses to be used. So, for example, CC BY for publications and data. And importantly, as I was mentioning, this is very important for us. We see that a lot of research is not reproducible. And for us, this is really important because it's publicly funded research. So it's public money that it's used. And so we want that others can be able to validate the results and the conclusion of the research that has been carried out under Horizon Europe, and possibly build as well on this research. So we have some measures and some obligation for beneficiaries that will have to provide information and access to instruments, tools, or results that are needed to validate the conclusion of scientific publications or of data. So these, I think it's a nutshell, what are the main novelties in Horizon Europe. As you see, as a founder, we have tried to do and through our policies to push, let's say, for open science being the new modus operandi in science. And I have just a couple of slides, the next one, as useful pointers to you, who are probably providing also a lot of support for researchers. So everything, our new policies and guidance on this, it's in our funding centers portal. So I included a link. And next slide, if you want to go further, because this was really a quick snapshot. We also had carried out a lot of webinars in the past months to explain the new requirements, and this might also be useful to you. So thanks very much. I hope I kept the time so there is a bit of time for Q&A as well. And yeah.
Thank you very much, Silvia. This was a very interesting introduction to open science on the European level. And it was really impressive what the European Commission and the administration is moving people to open science on this assessment, with funding, with legal environments and so on. And we hope that this will be successful, because the change of culture is a very, very big challenge. And unfortunately, the European Commission is just in Brussels and not in every university in Europe. So, and this is, I think, the big challenge for you to convince the people from this capital of Europe, which is far away from many, many places where universities are living. Now we have probably some questions, and the first questions I found in the chat is if you could please tell us a little bit more about the Open Research Europe platform that we have mentioned. Could you please share some statistics, insights about this platform and the lessons learned you might have done with this platform? How is the acceptance of this open access platform? Are there many publications already? And how do you promote the numbers of publications? And are there any incentives for the authors that they publish their research results on this European platform? I think these are some questions which are very important for us.
Yes, indeed. Happy to provide a bit more insights on Open Research Europe. So now at the moment we have seen, we are quite happy because, as I said, we just launched it in March, but yet we saw quite a lot of success. We had 220 articles submitted, of which 118 have been published. And you can see that there is a discrepancy between the number of submissions and the publications. And this is due indeed, when we launched the platform, a lot of people, there was a bit of a misunderstanding. Many thought that this was a repository. And so one of the criteria to be eligible to publish in Open Research Europe is that the research is original and that has not been peer-reviewed elsewhere. So indeed, this was a bit of misunderstanding at the beginning, that now as communication about ORE goes on, we see less and less this sort of misunderstanding. But we saw at the beginning, and this is a lesson that indeed we learned, that we had really to fine-tune our communication to explain that it's not a repository, it's really a publishing platform, like a journal where you publish original research. So this was something. Regarding the disciplines, I think this is a very important point, because we don't want ORE to be discipline specific. This is open for all disciplines and all subject areas covered by H 2020 and Horizon Europe. And we are quite happy to see that the uptake is quite good across the different disciplines. So we also saw, for example, and this I think it was very positive, that we have quite a few publications from social sciences and humanities. So we really see that ORE is uptaken across different disciplines. And in going forward in the future, we want to create some thematic collections with some editors that will be responsible for these, indeed, as well, to further a bit and promote ORE across the different disciplines and so on. So this is an action for the future. Their average, because I see this was also a question, the turnaround time. Now, I don't remember exactly the number of days. I think it was something around 20 days between publications and then between the submission and the publication. So as you can see, this is quite fast compared to a traditional journal. And of course, I think that this is an important incentive as well for authors in publishing in Open Research Europe. And then another thing, I think probably an incentive, we try to provide as well a page. So each article has a comprehensive metric page that can really provide information about the quality and the impact of the article, but not based only on traditional metrics, but also new ones. And on the quality of the open peer reviews, so far we did not have a lot of feedback on the quality themselves, but I think on our blogs we had, there is a blog on Open Research Europe, and we also have a Twitter account, and we asked the authors as well to report their experience in publishing in Open Research Europe, which was really positive so far. And there are a couple of examples on the blog of authors who shared their experience, and we will continue to do more and share their experience in the future.
Okay, thank you. There's another question from Françoise. How is the EC going to practically help researchers retain sufficient IPR to comply with immediate open access?
Yes, so I think what we have under the Horizon Europe, so we encourage the beneficiary to notify the publishers about their obligation that they have under Horizon Europe. And of course, this is for the Horizon Europe program. But as I was saying, we have a study on authors' rights. And in this, we are indeed try to understand what are the best practices that we see also in countries, in amendments, for example, that there were in copyright legislation, other good practices from institutions. So this is indeed an area that we want to explore further in the future to see if there is also and these studies will tell us also next year what we can do maybe more and what other measures we can take on the non-legislative and legislative side. So this is indeed an area that we want to further explore. For the moment, under Horizon Europe, we try to raise awareness and encourage beneficiaries, but we also are considering how we can take some further actions, probably also legislative, but the results of this study will tell us what we can do to further support authors in retaining IPRs.
I have a further question. If anybody from this group now would like to publish anything about open science now, is this possible very quickly? I have an article, for example, for open science, and I submit it to whom? To the platform or to a special journal who is joined with the platform? How does the workflow is running?
For open science, it's a scientific article that you want to submit on this topic. Well, on open, for example, Research Europe, the eligibility is that the article needs to stem from Horizon 2020 or Horizon Europe research. So if the article is a result of Horizon Europe or Horizon 2020 action, you can of course submit it on Open Research Europe, provided that it's an original article that has not been submitted in another journal. And otherwise, yeah, I think this is for our platform, I will say, and I guess there are other possibilities to publish it in other outlets if you wish to have this kind of article submitted.
And there's any peer reviewing?
Yes, so on Open Research Europe, the article, once it's submitted, it undergoes some pre-checks for plagiarism, the eligibility, and so on. Then it's published as a preprint. And once it's published as a preprint, then peer review undergoes automatically. And the peer review under Open Research Europe, it's really author-led, meant that it's, and this means that it's author who designated 5 peer reviewers in this field who think they will be knowledgeable to review his article. And then as soon as the peer reviewers accept, the peer review starts, and then their review is open. So on Open Research Europe, everyone can see the peer review report, and this is also citable. So I think what is very interesting in Open Research Europe as well is that by making the peer review open, we also make this task, which is sometimes hidden in a sense, but so important scholarly function, we made it open and also citable. So potentially the peer reviewers can also say, okay, I reviewed this article and others consider my review of good quality. It was cited this number of times. So also the peer review is citable and it is its own DIY.
Okay. Are there further questions to Sylvia? It is very comfortable that you can publish your research as preprint first, and then it's published, and afterwards it will be peer reviewed. Do you have had the scenario that the peer review recommended to draw back the preprint, for example? It might be that that an article is so bad that the peer reviewer said, no, this is unacceptable. You have to put it down from the platform.
This is really a very good question. So far we did not have so actually, once it's published and undergoes peer review, now we have the case, for example, of an article that was not rejected, but because the articles are never rejected in Open Research Europe, because potentially the author can make updates and improve the articles with the suggestion of the peer reviewers. But we have examples of articles which were not approved because the peer reviewers considered that this was not enough of good quality, or there needed to be really quite extensive improvements to be made for this to be approved. Now the articles, in a sense, we don't take them out once they are published as preprints, unless, of course, there is a report that there is misconduct, or for example, fabrication of the data. In that case, it's displayed as retracted, but we will not take them down, also to keep as a record what was submitted. And but just to say that before these preprints and the publication are published, as I was saying, there are quite extensive checks that the editorial team performs, like, for example, that the article complies with our ethical guidelines, that conflicts of interest is checked, that, for example, also we have a checking for plagiarism. So once the article is published as a preprint, there has been a number of checks going on, and then the peer review starts on the quality of the article by the peers.
Okay, thank you. It's an interesting procedure.
And then
it
another
was
thing,
unusual
yes,
for regular publishers or traditional publishers. If a preprint is rejected, the article is rejected. And for example, if you have any articles from predatory journals which will be rejected, the article is preprint on the platform. So it is not easy to understand
yeah, indeed. And our workflow, I have to say, it's a bit special in the sense that once an article is published as a preprint, the peer review undergoes immediately. So that's a difference and a major difference of the workflow compared to a preprint server, because in a preprint server, then the preprint does not automatically undergo peer review. In Open Research Europe, it is the case. And an important, I think, another benefit that I forgot to mention, but it's quite important as well, a couple actually, there is no cost for publishing in Open Research Europe. So the costs are covered centrally by the European Commission, and it's possible to publish as well once the grant is terminated.
Okay, thank you, Silvia, for your contribution, for your talk, and for the answers to all our questions. Have a nice day. Stay with us for the rest of the day, because now we learn from Elena and the speakers something about supporting researchers in the open science landscape. Is that right,
Thank you very
Elena?
much to you all.
Yes, thank
Okay.
you, Andreas. Thank you very much. Dear participants, welcome to the first session of the 10th UNICA Scholarly Communication Seminar, which is titled Supporting Researchers in the Open Science Landscape. Let me just remind you that we will be running Q&A session after all the presenters have given their speaks, and at the end of this session. And feel free to send your question at any time through the attendees chat channel. It will be helpful for us if you indicate the speaker you want the question answers to. The first presentation is titled Metrics, Values, and the Role of Librarians Assisting Universities with Measurements. And this time, it's my pleasure to introduce Yannis Tsakonas. Yannis is the acting director of the Library and Information Center of the University of Patras at Greece, and the chair of LIBER Innovative Scholarly Communication Steering Committee, among some other activities he is running. Yannis, I'm now handing over to you.
Thank you, Elena. Thanks to all the UNICA 10th Scholarly Communication workshop who kindly invited me here today. I really wish that I was in Cyprus, as many others mentioned. allow me to share the screen. So we had a good introduction of what open science is, and we know that open science is related to open access to publications, to open access to research data, and other products of the research workflow. I would like to dive into what libraries can do in the other fronts of open science and how they can make a change, because open science is actually a change, and it promotes changes in the academic processes, in the institutional infrastructures, in the services that we provide, in the content that we produce, and overall in the culture. We want to change because we have monitored that science has a lot of margins to be improved. We want that European science and research is very competitive. We don't want science and research to be closed, opaque, and has limited effect. Therefore, all those malfunctions that we have witnessed over the couple of years, they can be changed through open science. The whole landscape is changing because we have rapid technological developments, and we have new emerging fields of activity. For instance, it was mentioned that citizen science and the engagement of citizens is very welcomed in this new paradigm. And we see fields embracing what citizens can offer in science and research. We have new emerging actors. For instance, in the open access landscape, we have new publishers, new business models that are challenging a lot the traditional publishers, the legacy publishers, and at the same time, the claim for our attention, and especially here in the field of libraries, the claim for their own share in our budgets. And this is, very important, because if we want to build a fairer system, a more fair system, we need to take into account what every actor, regardless how new, junior, or senior is, or how big or small is. So we have also new principles, and all this, forces us to reconsider what we are already doing. Now, the traditional stakeholders, we see a reaction that they adapt through consolidation. We see building new platforms, big platforms that compile all together a number of systems. It can be for discovery, it can be for content creation, it can be for content filtering or content management, but it can be also for rankings. And for instance, we have one provider of rankings, and they collaborate with one of the discovery services. And the way how somebody calculates an indicator is very influential on what is the overall outcome. And at the same time, when we have rankings and we have this sort of competition, we see that individual performance is chained with institutional progress. The number of publications of an individual researcher is linked to the overall individual institutional score. But we cannot disregard that assessment is a very essential concept in open science. There are the 6 A's why assessment is essential. Is that because we analyze, we provide advocacy for something, we allocate resources somewhere, we are holding somebody accountable for something, we acclaim, and of course we adapt. So we cannot progress without assessment. And assessment is very vital, because if some things work for a period of time and cannot work forever. Therefore, if we want to adapt, and we know that the whole landscape is changing rapidly, as we said, then we need to have assessment. So we have seen some assessment frameworks, for instance, the DORA, the Declaration of Research Assessment, San Francisco, that now is trying to find a manifestation in a tool, and we have the space Rabbit. And the same happens with the Open Science Policy Platform recommendation that have seen some sort of materialization in OSCAM, another tool for making the assessment exercise a very viable one. And we see universities like Utrecht University and Loughborough University that have changed their policies, institutional policies. They promote openness, they promote the adoption of open science. And there are other universities that are considering strongly these. But in truth, we know that the principles and the values of the past are not relevant. I think this is easily traced. But the metrics are still people still understand what a journal factor is, what a citation rate is, and things like that, what an age index is. And frankly, I can understand why they find it hard to detach from these examples. And the new values that DORA or OSPP or the later manifesto are still searching for metrics and processes that all understand and agree, because it's easy for somebody to say that, okay, please don't count something, but read and interpret and weight the things and make the best decision based on a qualitative and a holistic and qualitative treatment of the data that you have in front of you. But it's not easy for everyone to understand. And again, the field in European research landscape and institutions, academic institutions, is very diverse. We have many disciplines, not all of them expressed in the same way. And we live in a continent with many countries and with many small languages, and much of the scholarly output is published in native languages. So all of these have to be somehow consolidated and find something that everyone will understand and agree, and we can process. Now, the main question, because I'm a librarian, I'm taking part in a library association, a very big library association, is, are libraries relevant in this? I mean, this is the obvious question, and how libraries can work on this. So in the steering committee of innovative communication, we had this group about innovative metrics. We produced some outcomes. One of the main outcomes is the recommendations for research libraries on scholarly metrics. And you can find it easily on Zenodo and download it. So, and of course, we have a couple of other reports that my colleagues there in this working group try to give an overview of the challenges, of the special conditions in this field, of what we should take care of and who we should be cautious of, and adopt the change in a very responsible manner. But to return to the recommendations, we group them in 4 main categories recommendations about discovery and discoverability, how we can, let's say, unearth material that can be used for measuring research performance, how we can make this revelation, this discovery, even for all of us, or for all and equal for all. We had another category about showcasing achievements, how we can calmly and responsibly promote the achievements of our researchers. What kind of services we can develop as libraries in order to support our researchers, in order to solve any of their questions. And at the same time, and final, how we can, let's say, fit in this research assessment context, because we recognize that libraries might not be the prime stakeholder, should have a role there, because there are services, units inside institutional and academic institutions that document, the production of an institution, that have, the expertise on many matters, that can bridge together different systems and worlds, and all those recommendations took the form of a document. So these are, I will not go through all of these, of course, but this is just the list of the recommendations that we had. For instance, that we should encourage our members to share the library collections under open licenses, and this has the meaning that you cannot actually perform measurement if things are closed. And of course, this is evident also in commercial products, or when we have, let's say, initiatives that try to open abstracts, or to open citations. There are two main initiatives based on this, and this will help any other infrastructure that will perform measurement. These are the recommendations. As you can see in the service development, there are a lot of things that research libraries can do. And in research assessment, there were mainly recommendations about how we can, let's say, mentally change approach research assessment. Now, as I told you, we are European LIBER, the Association of European Research Libraries is a very large association. We have more than 400 members. Not all of them are in the same level. So when we designed those recommendations, we wanted to be inclusive, and we could accommodate any level of engagement. For instance, each one of those recommendations had specific actions that somebody could perform, and those actions were related to the level of engagement of a library. For instance, now you see an anatomy of a recommendation. You see that in this example, we have one that can apply for to basic engagement level. I mean, somebody who is not introduced well enough to the concept, somebody who has done some work but not a lot, and then we have some recommendation, some action that addressed to an advanced library, and of course the ordering of those actions signified the importance. So in this sense, we try to be inclusive. We try to stay away from just being theoretical. We want to be actionable. to perform the change and to give examples of what a research library can do. And we wanted also to give the proper guidance on what they could prioritize. So I think my time is running out. I would like to close this short talk by saying that libraries should foster diversity in the systems and resources. And of course, we are responsible for many systems that are part of the scholarly communication. Institutional repositories is one of these, and research data repositories are also sort of the work that the libraries perform. And we could, we should take primarily care of our own systems. And open licenses, for instance, on our own system, we could work with our authorities in our universities in order to foster diversity and to be sure that no one is ignored, no one is staying behind because, for instance, is publishing in humanities. And the road of open science passes through our infrastructures. We should support those to be sustainable, to be inclusive, and of course to be linked, because EOSC, for instance, it was mentioned before, the European Open Science Cloud, and should we have a research data repository, we should make it linked to those pan-European infrastructures. Libraries definitely can inform, introduce concept, alarm about malpractices. Predatory journals is one of these, and of course, if somebody is using predatory journals in order to distort a reality, we should be able to trace this. And libraries can train researchers, adapt, of course, and align the institutional policies with the European and the more international one. And of course, that's the last recommendation addressed to, conclusion addressed to my colleagues in all libraries, is that we should be responsible and we should provide open science enabling systems. And openness is not something that will happen itself alone. We have to work about it, and the same is about fairness. Thank you very much for your attention. I hope that I stayed within the limits of time, and I will be happy to answer any questions later.
Thank you, Yannis. It was really very interesting and very informative, the presentation you gave to us. And as I said before, we are accepting questions after the finish of all the presentations of this session. Now the second presentation follows and is titled Expanding Open Access and Digital Services at the University of Carlos III of Madrid, Data Management and Digital Humanities Support. Please allow me to introduce the speaker. Raúl Aguilera Ortega is the director of the Law and Social Sciences Library at the University de Carlos III of Madrid, and the coordinator of the UNICA Scholarly Communication Working Group, among others, as I said before, activities he's running. Raúl, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Elena. Good afternoon to everybody. Let me share the screen. Okay. My goal today for the UNICA seminar attendees is to explain how we are trying to expand some of our open access services two different initiatives. Not all of them are new, of course. For instance, data management is something that started some years ago, but digital humanities and understanding digital and understanding humanities in a broad sense, as I will explain later, has been recently evolving at our university. So in the end, our idea is to go beyond the publication or the deposit of just articles or proceedings or books or something like that. We try to expand open access awareness beyond that area. So let me start by mentioning, by citing a report prepared by Ex Libris a couple of years ago. They made a survey with researchers, and they were asking them which of the following functions were expected for the library to support when supporting researchers in their role. It's an interesting survey because it's only a couple of years old, and some of these items that you can see on the screen are really contemporary issues at libraries, and we can deal with more or less with all of them. But some of them are related to data management, for instance, providing research data services, depositing publications and data sets. Of course, incidentally, also verify and enriching metadata quality. And as more in a general approach, raising awareness of research issues. So this has to do a lot with what we were doing so far in all the libraries, in all the research libraries. But what about digital humanities? Well, digital humanities actually do not appear here. They may be under these and none of the above or other items mentioned by these researchers. So what I want to stress today is that well, maybe the people that replied to this survey were not people from the humanities field. Maybe they were from the social science field. Maybe they were from science and technology, but that's not the point now, because understanding digital humanities in a broad sense allow libraries to serve researchers in a variety of ways. And whether they are humanities researchers or whether they are law researchers, we can, of course, serve them in a certain way. And this is something I want to show you today. So summarizing, we have these three main areas where researchers meet the libraries, where they know they can find some help in the libraries, because they understand the role of libraries in depositing research outputs. They also understand the role of libraries with regards to data management. And well, apparently digital humanities are not a priority, but this also depends, as I mentioned, on the provenance of these researchers surveyed by Ex Libris. So what happens? Well, actually, it seems that libraries play a role in the final part of the research activity, in the final destination of the documents or of the data. So that's pretty clear. It's also pretty clear that libraries may accompany researchers during the research activities, especially with data management. And apparently, and this may be a consequence, libraries may not see partners in the digital transformation of research, of humanities or in other fields. So here we can find that librarians can meet researchers as well. Librarians can serve researchers. For instance, if we go to the two first topics, we can work with regards to data and data management. We can work developing data repositories, and we can help researchers prepare their data management plans. So we can help researchers in open data and data deposit. We can help them comply with the requirements that some funding agencies or maybe some publishers are forcing their researchers with. And with regards to data management, we can also help researchers to comply with some requirements they can find elsewhere. So this is pretty clear, and this is something the researchers understand. Maybe not all the researchers understand that digital transformation is an area in which libraries can play a role. And how can we do that? Well, we can help researchers to showcase what they are doing. We can create or we can maintain visual repositories. We can help researchers to get more visibility beyond the articles or beyond the books they publish. And we can also enhance the publications. So for instance, imagine that researchers have published a book or some articles on art, and they have a collection of pictures. Well, maybe it's useless to feed these articles or these books with a lot of pictures, but you can put those pictures in a different place, in a different repository. So this is something we definitely can do. And we can also help researchers in experimenting with new formats or new tools or platforms. And this is very interesting because in the service we provide at our university, we are not the ones who do everything in the digital humanities projects, but rather on the contrary, there's a close collaboration, and we ask researchers to deal with the content, to upload the content, and we sort of advise and help them whenever they want or whenever they need. So, and that's the point, as I mentioned earlier, only humanities can benefit from this digital transformation. Well, I will speak about a couple of examples in our university where we've been integrating social science and law researchers in this digital transformation. Not only in what we can think of generical digital humanities projects, but also with data projects. And this is very interesting because there are many social scientists that produce data. And I'm not thinking about economics, or I'm not thinking about finance. Of course, these researchers know it very well, but I'm thinking also of law researchers. So what kind of initiatives we've developing these 3 years at my university? Well, let's focus first on data management. We have 2 different areas where we work with researchers, and this wouldn't be possible without Consorcio Madroño. It's a consortium consisting of the public universities from Madrid, the ones I mentioned in the slide, plus the National Distance University, which is a public university from the state. These services have been developed thanks to the consortium. So these are not actually services from our university, from my university, from my library, but from all the universities and libraries belonging to the consortium. So we have a data management plan tool. This is based on the DMP online tool created by the Digital Curation Center at the UK. And this is a tool where you can browse different steps, and you can, as a researcher, you can fill out the information you are being required, and you can use the data management plan to participate in calls for proposals, and especially in initiatives funded by the European Union. The consortium provides the technical infrastructure, but the support is provided by the member libraries. And this is not yet linked to the data repository, but hopefully in the future, this data management plan tool will be somehow linked to the data of the researchers on the repository. And on the other hand, we have Ciencia Datos. This is a data repository based on a Dataverse installation. Once again, there's an IT infrastructure that is provided by the consortium, but the support is provided by the member libraries. We provide DOIs to the data, and we also link the data to the researchers' ORCID. And what is very important, the licenses to use the data are open licenses. So we try to avoid closed deposits of data. We want that the researchers really use open licenses because this service we provide is subject to this condition. We want that the researchers share their data as openly as possible. So this is an example of a record in our Dataverse installation. This is an example from a social scientist. These are historians of economics. And they have a lot of data, of course, related to the history of economics and some data that they have prepared. So researchers provide us with the data. We give them advice on how to best describe the data. And we also encourage them to share the data as openly as possible, as I mentioned earlier. So in this case, you can see that only the attribution Creative Commons license is the one that is used, so it's quite open. This is not the only open license we use. There are many others that can be used, but as I already mentioned, we don't want that the researchers use our repository as private repositories, as closed deposits of data. The data that we upload in the Dataverse of the consortium Madroño is for everybody. It's open. And this open philosophy is also our philosophy for the digital humanities projects. And that's very interesting, I think, for you to know. So let's go for the digital humanities projects. There are 4 different ways of helping humanities and social science to start this digitalization process, this digital transformation. We started by using platforms already available from the libraries. We also tried to develop new tools for some specific projects. And then we started using a new platform with better results, especially in terms of visual results of showcasing the research. And finally, there's something important related to how librarians and researchers try to work together. So first, let's go to the platforms already available. I am mentioning here 3 platforms: the LibGuides, our institutional repository, and the data repository I already mentioned. This HISMEDI project on history, memory and digital society is based on LibGuides. It's a very simple digital humanities project. In this sort of website, the researchers showcase the key points of their research. So this is more or less a web page service. Okay. This is a different approach. We use our institutional repository for Almaisto, which is a project where you can find contents related to historiography in Spain from the 18th century to early 20th century. And there are several collections, and these collections are part of our DSpace repository. Okay. The first one and this second one are one of the first digital humanities projects that were developed at the library. And then we also created this other project that I already showed when I put in the screen the data set. This is more complex because we are combining here the institutional repository, because here you can find the texts, the articles, okay? We have also helped researchers to maintain their website. And here you can see a second screenshot with the key points of this website. But we also offer the dataset, and we also offer a visualization of the provenance of the data using the Google Maps. So combining these 4 different tools, we provided them a place to showcase their research. New tools. Well, here you can see these 2 screenshots. One is already known by you because this is based on Google Maps, but the other one on the left side is just a database, searchable database. This is based on an Excel sheet and transformed with PHP programming, so it's rather simple. And this is something that almost any IT with basic digital competencies in this type of databases can do. So this is another example of one of the first projects that we developed. But now I think we started a couple of years ago working with OMECA-S. This platform is able to showcase the results of the research in a very visible and in a nice way. This creates some kind of different repository, so to say, where you can structure very easily the information. In this case, we are showing an example of a very visual repository where you can find a lot of pictures. So pictures are, it's very difficult to integrate them in a disk-based repository. You can put pictures, of course, in a data repository, but that's not the best place to visualize them. And of course, you can put them in any web page. But what this service, this OMECAS platform allow to use is rather powerful, because you can put all the reference information for the object, including the abstract, the description, some information about the conservation of the in this case of the heritage, also some bibliographic references, as you can see in this left side screenshot. And you can also embed some contents. You can embed the pictures, of course, but you can also embed maps to put the location of these items in the physical space. And finally, I want to stress this. We work together with librarians and researchers. Researchers are responsible for feeding the contents of these tools, but we only participate in these projects if contents are released in open access. This is an example of some contents released with the attribution Creative Commons license, and this is basic for us. We don't want to participate, as I mentioned, with regards to the data, in closed areas, in closed deposits, in closed repositories. No. We have these preconditions, so to say, to help researchers in this, that we want them to be as aware of as possible of the open access possibilities of these tools. And I think this is essential because we have found another way, an alternative way to raise awareness on open access, beyond the articles or beyond the books that are already available in our institutional repository. And finally, I want to share these advices from the British Library. This comes from a report prepared by Liber, and I'm not going to go into the details, but let me highlight some of them that I think they are very interesting. We usually think of open access in terms of texts, or more recently in terms of data, but there are other new ways to fight for open access. So let's try with starting with small projects. We started with small projects with LibGuides and simple databases, and we are now building more complex environments using OMECAS, for instance. Try to learn as much as possible, and don't try to invent the wheel and to create new tools. Make the most of those tools that are already available out there, and be as open as possible. I think this is a very good advice from the British Library, and we try to comply with it because this helps researchers understand that the work of the library is a work for the general public as well. And going to the last items, shared what didn't work. We try in the Madroño consortium to share experiences. Last week we shared experiences with regards to digital humanities, and it's very good that everybody knows what works and what doesn't work, because it saves time. And I think this can help us align everybody to be with the same objectives and to be as efficient as possible. Now that we don't have all the stuff we need, and of course we don't have all the budget we need. So that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Raúl. Thank you very much for your very informative and also very interesting presentation, and for sharing with us your important initiatives which your team is undertaking in the University of Carlos III in Madrid. Questions maybe will be addressed to you at the end of this session, at the end of the next presentation. Now it's time to welcome the last speaker of this first session, my colleague Silvia Cucunidu. Her presentation is titled "Library's Role to Support Open Science, the Case Study of University of Cyprus Library." Silvia is the coordinator of the Digitalization and Archives Office on the University of Cyprus Library, and she is actively representing our university, our library, and sometimes Cyprus in many European open science projects or any other related network, for example, UFERING, OpenAir, NIFOS, etc. Sylvia, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Elena. Good afternoon, everyone. So yes, today I would like to share our experience regarding the support of our community related to the open science issue. And of course, we have to admit that due to the rapid technological changes, nowadays the role of research libraries unavoidable is multifarious. Among other roles, libraries can be seen as a multidisciplinary one-stop shop to support researchers in open science workflows. Libraries and librarians can and they are educators, open content providers, as we saw in the previous presentation, repository managers and providers, and through their knowledge, they can have a key role and be an important asset to policymakers for the creation, implementation, and monitoring of policies. In many European countries, we can see that libraries have established networks in all academia cycle and information literacy experience. They have established infrastructures to support the process. They have gained experience and a lot of knowledge through the years regarding several open science aspects, and they are well aware of the challenges of open science. Respectively, libraries were organized in networks, for example, consortia or working groups, such as the LIBER one we heard earlier from Yannis, and UNICA, and they have strong connections, at least in EU level. So the University of Cyprus, even though it's a young university, is rapidly expanding, and it has managed to have the largest university library in Cyprus in terms of building and collection. Accordingly, the library managed to gain the respect of the academia and the general public of Cyprus, and soon was able to participate in consortia networks of Europe and beyond. Among other tasks, for the last 12 years, the University of Cyprus Library is actively supporting the European Commission's vision for open access to publication, then open access to data, and now to embed open science as a philosophy. And since 2009, our library is participating in European projects and acting as the only national open access desk of the country. With the support of the European projects and their partners, the library is leading open science issues, is organizing informative events and training seminars and webinars for the academia, researchers, but also for interested citizens. And they also take part in promoting and takes part in policy discussions and revision, as I will show in my next slide. Of course, I will not go through all of our actions, but I would like to mention that a lot of milestones have been achieved since 2009, with the most important to be noted, the approval by the Council of Ministers of the National Policy for Open Access in the Republic of Cyprus, announced in 2016, which was the outcome of the coordination of the Working Group for Open Access we invited in 2015 as part of one of our open air dissemination events. Also important to be noted is the continuous support we provide not only to our university researchers, but to all the Cypriot researchers and stakeholders of the country, either for their obligations, for their grants, or for infrastructure creation and other related issues, and to policymakers and funding for implemented open science aspects. Our most recent activity is that for the last 2 years we are in close collaboration with the relevant local stakeholders to revise the national policy, since open science is in a continuous development. And we're actively participating in the drafting of the document, and we are expecting the final approval of the stakeholders, and then to go on with the actual implementation of the policy. Being in close collaboration with the main players of the country, we were able to follow up with the transformation of the structure of the governmental system regarding research and innovation, and continue our actions in all the pillars concerned to training, infrastructure, policies, and dissemination. We have to admit, though, that libraries face also a lot of challenges, and our library is not an exception. As we saw also in a survey published by Spark Europe in spring 2020, the greatest sustainability challenges related to open science initiatives is costs and funding, lack of resources such as staff or equipment, and the ability to keep up with technological developments regarding open access and open science. It is important to be noted that 1/3 of the survey participants start their year without an approved budget for these initiatives, something that can actually impact the stability of any open science initiative. Another challenge is the need of allocation of the tasks in dedicated teams and not partial dedication of allocation the tasks in 1 or 2 employees with a lot of other responsibilities. And of course, a lot of training and lifelong learning is needed. As we saw also to Silvia's presentation, legal issues is an ongoing procedure. Many directives are getting in force, new regulations, citizen science involvement, metrics and rewards, fair data and data management issues, technical aspects such as the repository softwares and management, and of course negotiation skills, since libraries are also in the procedure of discussing with publishers and get involved with in the procedure of discussing the rights and the APCs regarding open access and open science. As a conclusion, I would like to share with you what we as a library try to do to face at least some of the challenges towards mainly to save energy and resources. We try to identify and reach out the right and necessary stakeholders. We identify the knowledge gaps and needs, and this is done also through the participation and contribution of the right local stakeholders in relevant surveys, such as the one run recently from the project NIFOS Europe we are participating. And finally, we get and transmit knowledge through our involvement to the projects, synergies and collaborations. And by doing this, we're actually fulfilling the role of educators, and the goal we have in actually creating local discussion groups that will be able to take actions and positions in local and European level. I would like to close my presentation just by stating that open science is an issue with a lot of parameters, and for sure libraries can and must have a leading role to the developments that are now in progress. Thank you all. Thank you all for your attention, and I'm here to answer any questions you have.
Thank you, Silvia. Thank you, all of you, for the presentations. So now we are ready for any question. As I can see from the chat, there is no any specifically, but if anybody wants to answer the question now. If there is no any, maybe I can ask
Lena, Francois has just asked me a question. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, is there a team dedicated?
Is there any team dedicated to develop digital humanities project with researchers? This is for you, Raul.
Yeah, well, actually, there are no teams dedicated to anything in the library service. Everybody does a lot of things at the same time. But yes, there's some people that are more specialized because they know the tools or because they know how to accompany the researchers. Let's say there are some people from the IT department in the library. They are in charge, of course, of more platforms or technological tools, but the same people that are developing a database for being searchable on the web is the same person that participates in keeping the blogs alive at the library. Okay, so so this is why I say there are no dedicated people. Some people work at the humanities library because most of the researchers are from the humanities field. And there's also some people working in some central services regarding institutional repository, data repository, and data support in the end. And they also participate in some of the projects of what we call digital humanities. So in the end, it's rather more specialization, training of people that do a lot of things, of different things, rather than special team that we have built in the last couple of years.
Okay, may I ask something both to Raul and Yannis? Just because I know for my case, the answer is a university, but as your institution, do you apply any policy, and what is the most effective way to advance the open access approach or culture in an institution? Is the policy before the culture, or we need a culture and then the policy? Raul, it's
maybe Yannis first. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, Yannis.
Thank you. I think that the policy is a tool in order to get the culture. I don't think that we can have an even address. We cannot address evenly, even in an institution, this matter, because there are a lot of different disciplines, a lot of different perspectives, and so on. So my experience says that we have policies, we have introduced policies. Some of them were not as brave as it could, but the actual changes came when national or international European policies applied. That was a real change. So when those international policies applied, we saw that the culture within institutions started to change. But we have changes in the culture, which are not always portrayed in changes in institutional policies and so on. I don't know if that makes any sense. I think that the key outcome is that when we had something proposed by international stakeholders, it could be funders, for instance, European Commission is a big funder, then the change happened, occurred. Then we have a couple of examples of universities that have very brave policies, but in the whole European system, academic and research system, they were very, very isolated and they did not make an actual effect.
Thank you, Yannis and Raul.
Yeah, well, I think libraries are real experts in trying to make culture happen before policy exists. We usually like to push for the projects and push for changes in the organization. And for instance, we were trying to upload a doctoral thesis in 2007, 3-4 years before than the Ministry of Science considered compulsory to upload theses in repositories, and the same case it was in other universities. So I think pushing for a change of culture is very good. It's very important. We started working with a repository and with open access 14 years ago, and I think that maybe in the last couple of years is when policies may start to be defined in some areas in our university, but not also general policies like a regulation forcing you to upload some contents on a repository or something like that. No, also in terms of how the university manages the staff, how the university evaluates the teachers and the researchers. For instance, next year, it will be the first time that the vice president of faculty considers positive in an evaluation to have some contents uploaded in open access in the repository. And this has an impact on a part of the salary of the researchers. So after 14 years, it's great that the university finally decides this type of policies. So I think we shouldn't forget about changing the culture. Sometimes this comes first, and then will come the policies.
Very good. Thank you very much, both of you. And if there is no any other question, maybe we can move to the break, and maybe we can short